So here's the drawing I've got so far for TC Black Diamond receiver cap. Um, 1 inch OD, which is the stock I've got checked up in the lathe. It ended up 1.012, but with the knurl in there, you know, it's going to grow a little bit. And when I tried to measure that, and I did get a super accurate measurement with it knurled, I put a straight knurl on it instead of a crosshatch knurl. I tried a couple different ones, a fine knurl, a little coarser, actually the coarsest that I have in a knurling tool, and then the straight. And I personally like how the straight looks the best, so that's what I'm going to roll with on this part. So we're a basic, nominal 1 inch, and then with the knurl we're going to grow to 1 inch and 12 thousandths roughly, maybe 15, maybe 17, maybe 7. But anyway, I'm pretty sure the basic diameter is 1 inch. The thread is a 3/4 by 16. The OD of the threads was 751.5, and that should fit in the 3/4 tolerances. It may be just a touch big, and then the pitch on it, according to Michigan Muzzy, was a 16 pitch. There's only a couple of threads on that part. Maybe 3 or 4 on there, but it doesn't matter. I know what it's going to look like when it's finished. The hole for the spring, if I got the measurements right, was 206 deep. The ID of that spring hole was 0.377. The overall length of the piece is 0.679 with a 3/88 shoulder on it. And as near as I could guess, if I cut a 15-degree angle on this in a 1/4 inch, so I have a 1/2 inch diameter flat on the back, I think that would probably look pretty good. That's going to take 64 thousandths, I think it was. I'll put the picture in here of my triangle calculator that I used. I think it was 64 thousandths. Which should be a nice flat angle into there. Have I missed anything? I don't think so. So I've got the part chucked up in the lathe, and like I said, I already straight knurled it. I did that this morning before I ever got any responses back from Michigan Muzzy on the dimensions. And I don't know if the guy who even posted for this thing on the forum even wants one, but I want to see if I can build it off of somebody's dimensions that they gave to me, and glad to send it out to somebody to try in their rifle, see if it works. So anyway, we'll move over to the lathe and pick it up at that point. Okay, as you can see on side B there with this triangle calculator, it ended up being 64.7 thousandths, so 65 thousandths. All right, so here's what I've got so far. I did this morning, like I said, before I ever heard back from anybody about dimensions on this thing. I tried a crosshatch knurl, and I just didn't like how it looked. My knurling tool is a kind of an old beater. It actually came with my lathe. Let's introduce everybody to my lathe. It's an old Rockford Economy lathe. It was built in the 50s, near as I can tell. This thing's a beast. It will spin a 17-inch diameter, 72 inches long. So yeah, I could build a Civil War cannon on this thing if I could lift it or had enough brass to to cast one. So anyway, I've got had a straight knurling tool that I used and threw a knurl on there. I think that's going to look probably the best for what I can produce out of my shop. I already faced the edge of it off there, and I've got a center drill in there. I'm going to fire it up and center drill it, and then we'll start turning that 3/4 by 16 thread. So we're going to turn it down to 750. Just going to go right at 750 to thread this thing. We'll put a couple of threads on it, and if the threads come out, then we'll go ahead and bore out for the spring hole and make a few chamfers on it so everything's clean. Cut it off, spin it around, chamfer the back, and then put the angle on it. And then we'll put it on the mill and cut the screwdriver slot on it. So it should be a pretty quick build to do this. There's nothing too sophisticated about it. I'm kind of waiting to see if anybody responds on the ID of the O-ring, so I can leave that shoulder behind the threads. So I'm going to cut it down to 750, and then probably at that point I'll wait to see if I hear back from Michigan Muzzy or anybody else on the ID of the O-ring and the thickness of it, so I can, you know, cut those threads out of there so there's a nice clean shoulder for that O-ring to sit on. What else? This is just 1018, I believe. It's just a piece of scrap that I had laying around. If the guy who posted looking for this thing responds back to me after I cut this trial one, I'll cut it out of either 416 stainless, or I've got a piece of 4140 that's big enough to get this out of. But in the meantime, I want to see if I can do it and see how it ends up looking, and we'll send it to whoever wants one to try in their rifle. And I can case harden it. I've got some case hardening compound, cherry red. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that or used it. I've used it a couple of times. I used it on a gear cutter. I made a new gear for my little Grizzly gunsmithing lathe over there. The pinion gear that drives the carriage was had a bent tooth on it, which I did. So I cut a new one. There's a video on my YouTube channel of that, if you're interested to see how that went. That took a long time, and cutting gear teeth is a slow process, especially with only a case hardened cutting tool. I went slow and didn't take a very deep cut to try and make sure that tool lasted. So without further ado, let's cut the power onto the lathe. And the clutch is a little funny on this thing. I actually had a broken ring gear on the thing that I repaired about 6 months ago, and the clutch has just always been a little funny. It tries to, I always have to keep, you know, lifting up on the handle here to keep it spinning at the right speed. It tends to want to slow down, and I've learned to live with it. One of these days when I have 3 or 4 days, I'll really tear into the back end of this thing and see if I can get the clutch all adjusted and everything so it doesn't happen. But here we go, let's center drill. that ought to be deep enough. I'm going to put a live center in it. Even though I'm grabbed, I probably don't really need a live center because I'm pretty close to the chuck, and with that 1 inch, I'm not going to really get a lot of deflection out of that, so I don't know if I'll even put the live center in there. Probably not going to, actually. So go back to the drawing, do a little bit of math, and we've got the cutting tool in already. We'll cut the 750 diameter to the right length it needs to be for the threads, and put a threading tool in it, slow the speed way down, and cut some threads. So anyway, I'll do a little bit of math, find out what the length of this thread is, get my dial indicator set up on the carriage, and get the drill bit out of the way and pick it up at that point. All right, so I figured the length of the from the end of the plug to the shoulder is 291. So we had 679 long, 388 on the back side there. We'll subtract 388 from 679 to get 291. So I apologize for the heater running there in the background. That's kind of the noise that I'm going to live with because I want to be comfortable. So let's go over to the lathe and see what we got so far. I've come in with the cutting tool, and we're going to take about a 5/1000 cut off from the face of that. I've got, and that'll put us at 0. I've got my dial indicator set at 1 inch. It's touching the carriage there. That should give us plenty of room to move the 291 thousandths up to that shoulder. And so we'll take a little cut here across the face, and that'll put us at 0 relative to the part. Back up just 10 thousandths or so. Pull the tool back out of the way, and then gonna engage, come up about 50 thousandths, touch off on the tool on the part, and we'll make our first cut up to 291. Before I do that, though, I'm going to slow this feed. I may be already as slow as it'll go. So we've got the feed lever in the last hole, which will do 56 teeth per inch, or 4.2 thousandths per revolution if I am on A and C. And I am on A on that lever, C on that lever, so 4.5 thousandths per revolution is what we're going to take, and that's as low as this lathe will go, or 4.2 thousandths. I'm then going to make another gear for the back of it so I can slow the feed down a little bit more. This lathe, this big lathe, doesn't leave a real good finish. I could cut it on the Grizzly and probably get a fairly decent finish, but 1018 is pretty hard to get a super good finish on anyway. But this is just a trial piece. If it has a nice finish, that's great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I just want to see if the measurements work out. So Yeah, so here we go. So we move up 50,000. Sorry for the shakiness of the camera. This is hard to. Shut this down and zero. Sorry, I've been battling a cold. Zero this hand wheel. Oh, just lost it. There we go. Okay, so from 1 inch to 750 is 250,000. So we should make one full turn, end up back at zero, relatively. I'll take a couple of measurements as we get going here, and make sure that we're staying on track. We'll take a 30 thousandths deep cut, and we're just under an inch, so we're just past the back of the part. So and we want to be going left. Gauge the power feed, and we go to 291. That was at 30,000. Back out. Move up another 30. Thousands and 17. Zero should be cutting 100, 200, 88, 90, 91. That cut was at 60. Another 30 to 90. Hopefully that gets us within, if I don't go too deep. There we go. Zero should be covered. 100. to the knurl, so that's good. I'm going to pause it, take a measurement with my micrometer and see where we're at, and we'll go from there. All right, so I just measured this. We were, I don't know if you can see that or not, just a skosh over 772. About 772.2. So that last cut was at 120, and we need to go to 750, so that's 22 thousandths. So 5 will be 10, another 5 will be 20, and 1. That should be 22 thousandths right there. Even if it's a little under, I can still get the thread to within spec, because we're going off the pitch diameter, not OD or ID of the depth of the thread, but we can go off the pitch diameter, which is the distance basically halfway through up through the thread. But I apologize for how loud this lathe is. If you can't hear me talking clearly, maybe it's a good thing, I don't know. So here we go. I'm gonna wind the last pass in by hand and go slow. Try and get it as clean as we can, but like I said, with cold roll, 1018, stuff like that, it's hard to get a good finish. And this lathe at going only 4 thousandths per revolution, it's kind of tough to get a good finish. But I love this lathe for threading. I don't have to change any gears. I can hit basically every American thread pitch with just those 3 levers right there. From 4 threads per inch up through 56. So anyway, here we go. Last pass. Hopefully last pass. Sorry for how shaky this is. I'm trying to hold the camera / iPhone and watch what I'm doing at the same time. Just kind of tricky. So here we go. I don't know if you can hear that clutch kind of giving out there. Pull out of that real slow so you get a good clean shoulder. So there we go. That looks pretty good looking at it in the camera. Still a little bit rough. Nothing with a file and some sandpaper won't clean up though. So let's back this out. That cut was at 295, so lengthwise, it feels fairly smooth. Doesn't look real smooth. I said 1018 is pretty hard to get a good finish with. So let's measure the diameter of that and see if we need to make any adjustments and go from there. Alright, so we came in 747, and I'd call that 4/10 without looking at the vernier scale. Yeah, 747.4. So I'm going to pull up my thread app that I use and see if we're in spec, but I'm sure we are going to be. And I'll post that picture in here. And then we'll switch out tools. And in the next video, we'll start threading this thing.